So I have another treat for you guys. I have one more Robert. we had another Robert Sneerdag last weekend.
Okay.
And we were talking about fasting.
Okay.
And a lot of us went on a fast, and people actually just finished a 3-day fasting with him. And so today is another Robert. It's a Robert Powell, and many of you have seen him before. We have done some interviews with you, and I'm pretty sure the members here have seen this. So this is Robert Powell again.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, it's wonderful. Thank you for the invitation, Josh.
Yeah, we are very often in private having very interesting conversations about water. And especially also these days, because we just found out there is some very good water here in Ecuador. Or rather, we didn't just find out, but we actually just kind of waking up to it. And you did some testings and all that stuff. And so I wanted to make this event about water and go in and take a look at this beautiful sacred substance.
Wonderful. Well, that's very special, Josh.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait just 3 more minutes.
Okay.
And to make sure everybody arrives, but we're gonna start on time this time, because normally I always take my time to sit and let people talk and all that stuff. But I'm going to change my protocol. We're gonna start on time in the future. In the future, we start exactly on time, and I will try to be there like 10 minutes before. And so if there's anything coming up, you can do it in the chat box. I'll answer these things. And then we start actually 11 a.m. sharp, Ecuador time. So please be on time in the future. So if you have anything, Michael, he just received his Hue light, the Korean machine.
Yes.
Congratulations, Michael. Somebody likes your medallion. Where did you get it?
Well, it was made for me by somebody in Utah. I don't know who that person is because it was given to me as a present, but I know it was made by somebody in Utah. That's all. It's the flower of life.
Yes, a lot of them.
Yes.
It's beautiful. So we're gonna be talking today about, okay, we have 1 more minute. I'm not gonna do any official stuff right now. Any questions coming up? We can take it right now. You have 1 more minute. Hello, Barbara. Okay. Can we use hydrogen peroxide for hydrogen? John says. It's 2 very different things. And I remember talking to Patrick Flanagan about that. And he does not like hydrogen peroxide because it's an unstable oxidizer and it's creating problems in the cells. So when you are inhaling molecular hydrogen, it's a very different experience for the cell. So it's 2 very different. I'm not saying hydrogen peroxide is bad. It can be used in certain situations, but when it comes to like long-term application, I don't think it's a good idea. I think you should do molecular hydrogen, not hydrogen peroxide. And food grade 3%, it's fine, but it's not about purity that I'm having the issue. It's more about how it's functioning inside the body. Okay, so Karen is saying she would love to hear Robert's story in the chapel with Maria Sophia. In the chapel with Maria Sophia.
Yes, well, this was quite some time ago.
We are actually officially going for it now. So it's 11:01, so we start now.
Okay. Well, this was an important moment in my biography back in 1980, and I was in Amsterdam, and somebody told me about this special chapel where there had been, which was in honor of the appearances of the Virgin Mary in Amsterdam under the title The Lady of All Peoples. And the person who invited me said that it would be possible if we went there to this chapel of the Lady of All Peoples to meet the seeress, the woman who had the visions. And this was actually what then took place. We went to the chapel.
Could I ask you to not touch the table, because the camera is just like this?
Okay, yes. So we went to the chapel, and there was a service, and there was a big painting there of the Virgin Mary as the Lady of All Peoples. And during this service, then she appeared to me through this painting as a manifestation in radiant white. And from that moment in time onwards, I knew that Sophia was very much part of my life and would be guiding me. And this has been the case, which I've been able to validate numerous times since then. And I feel very, very blessed to have had this guidance, which a few years later led to me, together with two women in California, founding the Sophia Foundation of North America, or just simply Sophia Foundation, which has a website to which I've contributed quite a lot. So I just wanted to mention that www.sophiafoundation, or one word, Sophia Foundation, Sophia spelled S-O-P-H-I-A, sophiafoundation.org. So there's quite a lot there about my biography and various videos that I've done, for example, with Josh in the past about cosmic dance, a form of dance I teach, and also the extension or broadening or spiritualizing of astrology to astrosophy. So I understand there are three levels: astronomy, which is about the physical aspect of our cosmos, our universe; then astrology, which is the soul aspect, which tends to focus very much on individuals' birth horoscopes and the unfolding of their destiny; and then astrosophy, which is the spiritual dimension of the cosmos and the universe, and how everything is related to this spiritual dimension. So that is one of the things I've been working on, and I have some lectures or talks posted on the Sophia Foundation website under resources, which were done together with Josh. And I have to say, Josh is an excellent facilitator in such interview situations.
Thank you. There's somebody asking, they just came and they're asking who you are, and somebody's answering saying, is Robert Sneerdak? No, it's not. This is Robert Powell from the Sophia Foundation. So it's a different Robert. I would like to, I would like to start by asking a little bit of an open, broad question. Why do you think water is important in a spiritual sense Like what is the water's role in a spiritual sense? Why are you interested in water? You're okay, Sophia Foundation. Why do you care about water?
Yes, well, if we look at the evolution of humanity, and there is, of course, this understanding of the precession of the equinoxes. The vernal point moves back slowly through the constellations or signs of the zodiac, and there arise then different historical periods, each lasting 2,160 years. So my PhD thesis is in the history of the zodiac, because I wanted to know exactly how the zodiac is defined, how it was originally defined by the Babylonians in relation to the stars, and how the great zodiacal ages, periods of time, can be defined. And right now we are still in the age of Pisces, and this will close in the year 2375. It's possible to say very exactly, based on the exact definition of the zodiac in my book, History of the Zodiac, which is the book of my PhD thesis. And then the vernal point will enter Aquarius. We have to remember the vernal point is moving retrograde backwards through the signs of the zodiac in the heavens, and each sign comprises 30 degrees. The vernal point moves at 1 degree every 72 years. So that means that the zodiacal age lasts for 2,160 years, which is 30 times 72. And the vernal point entered Pisces in the year 215 after Christ. And it's very interesting that at that time, then, we find in the Christian community in Alexandria, in Egypt, that they began to speak about Christ as the divine fish. For previously, he was the lamb. We can read in the Bible about Christ as the Lamb of God, also in the book of Revelation. And from the year 215 after Christ onwards, they began this reference to Christ as the divine fish. And in this period then, from 215 to 2375, this period of 2,160 years is the age of Pisces. In the year 2375, the vernal point will move into Aquarius, 30 degrees of Aquarius, and there will begin the age of Aquarius, which is the age of the water bearer. So the cosmic image is of this being who is pouring out water. And so Aquarius is the archetype for farming and gardening. We think what an important part it has always been, at least in the past, for gardening is watering the plants, watering the land. And so Aquarius, that we could say is the archetypal profession, if you like, for Aquarius, is tending the earth, caring for the earth. And this means that then there will be much greater interest in this element of water than we have at the present time. Of course, Pisces also is connected with water in the sense that the fish swim in the water. And without getting too complex, the feet correspond to Pisces, and the lower part of the leg, the calves, correspond to Aquarius. And so if we imagine now it is through our feet that we connect with the earth. And we find in the age of Pisces, we've had this tremendous impulse of exploring the earth, so that now there's practically no corner of the earth that has not been explored. This is the feet wanting to go everywhere. And in ancient times, of course, there was trading. For example, the Phoenicians sailed to different places, but nothing like what we have now with our explorations of the entire globe of the earth.
The camera is moving again when you're putting hands on stuff.
So we can see how important this transition will be. Now, of course, it's still nearly 360 years from now, this transition. But of course, there's always a period of moving towards something and gradually transforming. And in my work, the transition began really with the beginning of the 20th century. And this is the beginning of the New Age. I've also studied Hindu chronology, and the Hindus speak about the Dark Age that began in the night from the 17th to the 18th of February in the year 3102 before Christ. Now, in astronomy, we say that is the year minus 3101, because historians, they don't count the year zero. So you can't really do mathematical transformations using the historian's way of counting. So the Kali Yuga lasts for 5,000 years. So minus 3,101, we come to 1899. Also, Madame Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, speaks of 1899, and Rudolf Steiner, who was the founder of anthroposophy, he also speaks of the year 1899. And this point of transition from then onwards into from the Kali Yuga, or age of darkness, into the Satya Yuga, or age of light. And so that is this time of awakening of spirituality in a global sense, interest in spiritual teachings, spiritual ideas. And this is leading us towards the age of Aquarius. But the real start of the age of Aquarius will be in the year 2375. Now, in my studies, I found that just as we can speak of an incarnation of Christ coming from the central sun of our galaxy 2,000 years ago, that the one who is referred to in the book of Revelation as the bride of the Lamb, or the bride of Christ, that is the divine feminine counterpart of Christ, who in Greek is called Sophia. Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom, and that she is on her path of descent, coming from the central sun to bring in the divine feminine. And there are important stages of this incarnation. I posted an article about this on the Sophia Foundation website, if anybody's interested in following it up. And at the start of the age of Aquarius is when Sophia will unite with our sun, and will be streaming out from there a new life energy, a healing energy. And so in a certain respect, we could refer to the age of Aquarius also as the age of Sophia. This is being prepared. And these different manifestations of the Virgin Mary, who is connected with Sophia, have to do with water. And so we begin to see this connection between Sophia, Mary, and the element of water. The most famous example we have is the place Lourdes in the Pyrenees. There was a 14-year-old girl, Bernadette, French girl, walking that was on the 25th of February in the year 1858. And this radiant being appeared to her and beckoned her to come to a cave that she was walking past, and said she should wash and drink of the water there. And Bernadette went into the cave, didn't see any water there, but the Virgin Mary said she had to scrape away the earth. So she did, and then water started bubbling forth, and it was communicated to Bernadette that this water had healing powers. And the Virgin said that there was a blind man who would be coming along, guided by someone shortly, and that he should bathe his eyes with this water. And so when the blind man was approaching, Bernadette went to him and said she had this message for him from this radiant woman. She didn't know it was the Virgin Mary at that time. That came later. And who had told her that he should bathe his eyes in the water in the cave, which he did, and his sight was restored to him. And this was the beginning then of the healing miracles at Lourdes, which have continued, and there are something like 7,000 recorded, medically recorded miraculous healings through the water at Lourdes. So this is very special water, and this is one of the reasons for looking into water, also, of course, for its healing properties. And I know this is also a special interest on your part, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just to, when I had my near-death experiences, for some reason, I was just pointed out on the other side that water is a big deal. It's playing a crucial role in the future of humanity and its ascension process. Pay attention. That was kind of like what I came back here to this body, and I was obsessed about water early on, and I didn't know why. I had no idea. Like I just didn't understand. I just knew this is a very important liquid on Earth, and so for decades. This is many years ago. There wasn't much information about these things, at least not available for me. And now all this information is coming out in the world now with all the healing benefits of water, and it has memory, and it can hold the information. So much is going on, structure of water, etc. So yeah, so it's exciting to see how the world is waking up to this and becoming more and more conscious and aware of water and what's going on with water and what's possible. So you've been traveling around the world, seeking some of the best waters and researching. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, well, this is an ancient myth or mythology that is connected with water, that there are very special sources of water on the planet, which we could call them those water sources bring forth the elixir of life. And so there has always been this search for these special water sources. And I had a dream about this, and actually finding a very special source of water in the dream, which had not been found before, and that it had extraordinary healing powers and powers of restoring health and wellness. And so that has lived with me. And before coming here, I was living, I had a home base, as it were, in southern Germany and a home base in California. Because of my teaching activity, I needed to have this possibility from my place in California, giving workshops in the US and in Canada, and from Germany, giving workshops in Europe, in Italy, Germany, England, Scandinavia, also in Denmark, where you're originally from, and all the way down to Australia. So that the giving of the workshops has meant that I've traveled a lot. But in addition, in connection with my work with the Sophia Foundation, together with the co-founder of Sophia Foundation, who I met in California, Karen Rivers, we have been leading groups of people to sacred sites around the planet. So we were going to go this year, 2020, to Australia, to the sacred site of Uluru, which is used to be called Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia, which is sacred for the Aborigines, is a real power center on planet Earth. But because of the special circumstances this year, the restrictions, it wasn't possible. We had to cancel.
The pandemic.
Pandemic, yes, unfortunately. 2 years prior, in 2018, we went to Bali, and of course, that was a very, very special experience.
They have water temples in Bali.
Yes.
Did you visit any of those?
We did, yes, and it's incredible watching literally hundreds of people in these, bathing places to receive the sacred water.
Did you test any of these waters?
No, I didn't, because, well, I have now, in the meantime, acquired quite a list of special waters, and so I can say something briefly about this. But first of all, I'd just like to read something from a Russian mystic who's no longer alive. He died in 1959, Daniel Andreev, and he's best known for his book, Rose of the World. And in this book, there is a kind of, I would say, an invocation to Mother Earth. And of course, when we talk about water, this is an aspect of Mother Earth. So just to honor Mother Earth to begin with, and later then I have an invocation specifically for water.
Awesome.
Earth is the mother of every living thing, every elemental, every animal, human, angel, and even every angelic hierarchy, an inexhaustible wellspring. She is the one who creates the life body of all beings. She is endowed with warm, inexhaustible love for everything. Everyone, all beings, call her Mother. She loves all and everything, but she reveres only the highest hierarchies, especially Christ. She is fertilized by the great radiant spirits of the sun. She perceives people and their inner world. She hears and responds to the call of our heart, and she answers through love and through nature. May her name be blessed. Prayer can and should be offered up to her in great humility. All of us abided at one time in her immaculate heart. Great One of Light, they sang your glory in the temples of Egypt and ancient Greece, on the banks of the Ganges, and on the top of the ziggurats of Ur, in the land of the rising sun, and in the far west on the Andean plateaus. We all love you, good and bad, wise and ignorant, believers and non-believers, those who feel the infinite goodness of your heart, and those who simply enjoy your light and warmth. Cascades of spiritual grace pour down into the angelic worlds, the worlds of the elementals and the worlds of humanity. Beautiful Spirit, the origin and sire of all living matter, the visible image and likeness of the universal Son, the living icon of the one God, allow me too to join my voice, audible to you alone, to the global chorus of your praise. Love us, O Radiant One.
Wow. Beautiful. When was this written?
Well, Daniel Andreev had the, could say, misfortune of living in Russia at the time of Stalin.
Okay.
And it was not really it was not safe to be, as he was, a poet and visionary mystic. He was arrested by the KGB. Everything, all his poetry, everything he'd written was destroyed. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, also his wife. But while he was in prison, his visions continued. And so The Rose of the World was actually written mainly, for the most part, while he was in prison.
So this beauty came out of him in prison.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
We have to, what he describes is that when everyone else, his fellow prisoners, were asleep, he was lifted out of his body by his guardian angel, and he was shown everything that was going on. And so he gives descriptions of higher realms of existence, but also of lower realms of existence, and how Stalin was drawing from those realms. It's a pretty amazing work. At the moment, only the first half of this book is translated and published in English. And my wife actually is working on helping with the translation of the second half of the book. So, but that will take a while. So when we
have interesting people living in Vilcabamba, just so you know. This is awesome.
Well, and so if we're talking about water, we need to really hold in consciousness the whole process of creation, and the most extraordinary source I've found for describing how the earth and humanity came into existence is in the works of Rudolf Steiner, Austrian, who taught in Germany and other countries in Europe. And he was able to explore the evolution of the earth all the way back to what he calls ancient Saturn, when there was only a great gaseous body of warmth. But this was the actual beginning when humanity began to begin. And that's where the element of fire comes from, our relationship to this warmth element. And following that, the second stage of evolution, the ancient sun, like a gigantic sun, the global nebula, we could say, how it's described in astronomy. And this was when the element of of light, and the air came in. So it was more, we could say, a gaseous form before, a warmth body, and now a gaseous body. And this is our relationship to the element of air. And in each case, in each stage of evolution, there's like a condensation, densification. So from this gaseous ancient sun, there came then the ancient moon stage of evolution, which was in a watery form. So there's a connection with water where this comes from. And the human beings, all human beings, were going through an evolution in these stages. We were acquiring different levels. And then the fourth stage was the densification from the element of water to the element of earth, the solid earth that we know. And this is where we have arrived at the form we have at present, with different levels of our being, but which are connected with these elements of earth, water, air, and fire. So this is very important. And of course, permeating our physical body, we have our energy body or life body, and this is really connected with water, the water element. So water is absolutely essential for all life on this planet. Plants, trees, everything needs the rain, the life-giving bestowal of water in order to live. So water and life are intimately connected with one another. And so, of course, we know that if a person becomes dehydrated, then that is not good for the physical body, can be actually quite dangerous. And so this is where we are called upon essentially to honor Mother Earth, who has been through us, who's been through these stages of evolution together with us. We have evolved with her from this beginning through these 4 stages. And so when we consider water now, many people just think of water as something that comes from the tap, and without considering,
or lays it's in the toilet.
And so actually I worked together with a medical doctor in Germany, Klaus Wild, or Klaus Wilder, as it's pronounced there. And he taught me how to measure energy level, not just of water, but he specialized really in water. And he said this made an enormous difference in his healing practice once he began to get an understanding of how important water is. And so in most modern cities, of course, the quality of water that comes from the tap isn't particularly good.
It's not the best.
And so but it's usually between, this sounds a lot, but it's not, between about 6,000 and 10,000, because the energy level is measured in angstrom, which is a minuscule quality of energy. And it's too small actually to be measured by most physical instruments. You'd have to have a very special instrument to be able to measure it. But Klaus Wild taught me how to measure using a pendulum held above the water, and with one hand held above the water and the pendulum above a special chart, which he created, and you can then follow until you reach the level of what you're measuring, where it is. And so you have to be, of course, completely neutral in this
Mm-hmm.
process, and not influencing it in any way with you, and not having any expectation of what you're measuring.
Mm-hmm.
So just to...
So you've been practicing this form of measuring for how many years?
For, I would say, at least 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been some time.
Yes. Now, so just to go through this, there is an article I've written, and if anybody's interested who's listening to this interview, then I can perhaps make it available through Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sure.
An earlier version of this article was actually published on the Sophia Foundation website, and there you would have to look for what's called the Starlight Journal, and it's in volume 13 of the Starlight Journal, of which I was editor for many years. Volume 13, number 2.
By the way, just so you guys know, we will take questions later. I'll just let Robert finish this presentation, and then we take all the questions at the end. So any questions that comes up, just write it with big letters, and I'll read them up.
Yeah. So now, using this method of measuring energy, which goes back, it was discovered by a French researcher, André Bovis, who was born in 1871, died in 1947. And so this has come through him, this possibility of being able to measure energy. So again, regular tap water between 6,000 and 10,000. If you have good spring water, that will be like about 30,000 bovis, 30,000 or more, and pure rainwater, 45,000. So then, in terms of drinking water, the different mineral waters around the planet, we have, as you mentioned, Josh, right at the very start, we have this very special water here, which is from all the different mineral waters I've been able to measure. This particular water, which is marketed here in Ecuador under the name of Splendor water.
It's coming from a spring called La Mana here in Ecuador. And there's a whole big story around all that we can go into. If we have the time, let's go into this today as well.
Yes. And it's just now this year going to be marketed also in the United States under the title of Health H2O by a company in Florida. Now, Splendor water is in a class all by itself. Now, I have to emphasize this is what I've been able to measure. I haven't been able to measure everything.
So, and also the Splendor water, when you measured it, it's coming in a bottle that's been transported from that place to here.
Yes.
You haven't even measured by the mouth of the spring, like in nature.
No.
I'm curious to hear what that will be.
Well, yes, we should go there.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna go.
Yes,
it's
good,
done.
Good. So that is a very good point, is that, of course, at its source, it's much higher energy. So here we have the Podocarpus Mountains, not far from here, which are a source of rainwater. It's always raining there, or very often raining there. And there are different sources of very good water there from the Podocarpus Mountains. And depending upon these different sources, I've measured several different sources. It's at least 3,000 bovis or up to 6,000. And that's really good. There's
3,000 to 6,000. Wasn't that what you said tap water was?
Sorry, I mean 300,000 to
300,000. Yeah, okay.
600,000. Yes.
So tap water is 6 to 10,000, and Purakapa's water right over here, we can see it from here, is 300 to 600,000
yes.
bovis. So
yes.
there's quite a difference. This is the water that I've been drinking for many years. But I actually shifted now to this Lamana water after you measured.
Yes. Well, and in Europe, there is a water coming from the high Alps in Switzerland called Loredana water that has an energy level of 350,000. That's really good, for mineral waters, commercially available waters. But Splendor water, or the Lamana water, has an energy level of 5 million. So it's in a different class.
And that's from the bottle that you get delivered here. Like they are delivering here from Lamana, actually straight to here to me and Robert and a few others. And it's measured at 5 million bovis by the time it arrives here.
It's and it's very special water. So Alex Putney has written a lot about this. He says it's unique in the world because of these nanoparticles of gold and silver in the water. And in antiquity, this merging of gold and silver was called electrum. So Alex Putney refers to it as electrum water, and he connects it with that it has a very special property in activity upon our cells and is able to restore our cells. So perhaps we can go into this special Lamana water, which comes from the west coast of Ecuador, right in the middle of Ecuador, very near the Cotopaxi volcano. So the water actually comes down from a reservoir within the Cotopaxi volcano, and of course it picks up all the from the volcanic rock and comes to Lamana, and this is the water which we're able to drink here, this very high energy level water. Now, before I mentioned the water from Lourdes in the Pyrenees, and here we come into water that is not commercially available. It is just freely available. If you go to these places, you can get the water. So I've been to Lourdes, and the water there, this healing water that was shown to Bernadette of Lourdes by the Virgin Mary, has an energy level of 23 million. So that's nearly 5 times, or let's say between 4 and 5 times more potent than the Lamana water. Now, this Lourdes water has healing properties. Obviously, there are something like 7,000 recorded cases of miraculous healings with that water. And so the fact that it was the Virgin Mary who pointed to this water, and the Virgin Mary is connected with Sophia, I see as a kind of pointing towards the coming age of Aquarius, when water and the healing powers of water become much more known. Now, in my work together with Klaus Wild, this anthroposophical medical doctor in Germany, actually he's no longer alive now, he started measuring the energy level of dewdrops in the morning, and there's also dewdrops in the evening. And he found that the energy level of that water is also 23 million, the same as the Lord water. So
in ancient Taoist teachings, they are saying you should drink the water of immortality, and that will be the dewdrops in the morning.
exactly, yeah. So the dewdrops are really, we could say, a divine blessing for Mother Earth that she receives every morning and every evening, and that it has very special properties.
And also, if you think about the dewdrops, that is water that has levity qualities, like a defying gravity, and it's in the atmosphere, and then the sun starts coming up, and just a tiny bit of gravity starts to take hold of this water, and it collects itself on the leaves of the plants everywhere, right? And so this is water that is so super levity energy, which is hydrogen, by the way, and but still it's becoming available in its liquid form. So I think there's a lot of this ancient wisdom that science are beginning now to be able to explain a little bit of why it is so good. But it's interesting to know we've known this for thousands of years.
Yes, it's very interesting. You mentioned Taoism or Taoism, but the German word for dewdrop is Tao.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yes.
Wow.
Tao is the dew, and trop is the drop. Tao trop, dewdrop. So this is, again, very often we find this in language.
Yeah.
That language holds keys, indicators, which point to something. Now, one of the places where I was leading a group in the year 2008 was India. I'd always wanted to go to India, to explore India. I mean, it's a huge land, and we were very ambitious with all the places we went to visit. And the last area we went to visit was the area around Chennai, what used to be called Madras. And we visited what still is, the headquarters of the Theosophical Society in Adyar.
I've been there.
You've been there?
Yeah.
Yes. That's quite an interesting place.
Yes, it is.
And also we visited a very special place there in that area of Chennai, which is connected with the Apostle Thomas, who was one of the 12 apostles of Christ, and he came to India. Now, he had not experienced the resurrection, the risen one, like the other 11, or actually 10, because Judas
he wasn't there.
No, he wasn't there.
He wasn't around.
No. He committed suicide by hanging himself on the morning of the crucifixion, because he was. Anyway, that will be
that's a whole different story.
A whole different story. But I've written a book about the life of Christ, Chronicle of the Living Christ, which is for the first time in the history of Christianity where the exact dates of the events in the life of Christ are given, because I was interested in working with the planetary and stellar configurations in the life of Christ. This interest began with my interest in finding out what was the star of the Magi, the three Magi, or the three wise men who came from the east to the birth of Jesus. What was it that they had seen in the heavens that led them? And so that is all in my book, Chronicle of the Living Christ. And so when I say these dates connected with the life of Christ, these are absolutely secure dates, because I was able to scientifically verify the accuracy of the dates beyond a shadow of a doubt. So the crucifixion took place on Friday, the 3rd of April in the year 33, and the resurrection on Sunday, the 5th of April, obviously in that same year, year 33. And then on the following Saturday, so that was on the 11th of April, the disciples were gathered together, and they had so I should backtrack on the.
But what is that related to water?
Well, it's related. Yes, it is related to water.
Okay.
So we're getting
there. Okay.
Yes. So so on the day after the resurrection, so that was the Monday evening on the 6th of April, the disciples were gathered together, and the risen one appeared to them. And so they got to experience him. But the disciple Thomas was not there on that occasion, and he had difficulty believing the story of the other disciples when they told him. When he came back, he'd been away from Jerusalem, when he came back. But then the following Saturday, which was the 11th, then the risen one appeared to the disciples again, and Thomas was there. And Thomas still having difficulty believing it, but the risen one said to him, you know, he could put his hand in the wound in his side where the lance had penetrated through when he'd been on the cross. And so Thomas had this experience, and then he was absolutely convinced then. But this was something very special, because he had actually touched Jesus Christ, who had gone through death and resurrection. And so he was empowered in a special way. And he traveled to India, and he was able to perform miracles in the name of Christ. And that was convincing for the Brahmin priests there. And so there are many, many people converted to Christianity through this visit of Thomas. I mean, he went there originally because there was a Jewish community there in the region of Kerala. And so he went there, but then also the Hindus became interested in him. And he traveled across India to Madras, or now called Chennai. And he used to meditate in a cave there. And we went with our group to that cave, and we heard the sound of water way down running. There was a crevice in the rock, and the water was running that way down below this cave where Thomas used to meditate. And in our group there on this visit to India was Kathy Wild, the wife of Klaus Wild. So she also was very interested in the water research of her husband, and she was determined to get hold of some of this water. Now she found, don't ask me how, but she found some way of getting some of that water. And so we call that Thomas water. And so this water has an energy level of 500 million. So this then is over more than 20 times the potency of the Lord water or the dewdrops. So this is very special water. And now I do not know why it has that power, but I met an Indian woman, a teacher at the Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado, which is well-known Tibetan Buddhist center. And she knows everything about the Hindu tradition, the gods and the goddesses, but she is also a very learned woman. She'd done her PhD on water in India. So she had tested different water, and she said the very best, she knew the Thomas water because she had been to that cave herself. And she actually grew up in Adyar because her parents were dignitaries of the Theosophical Society. So she knew about the Thomas water, but she said the most potent water in India is Gangotri water. And Gangotri water...
Is that the river Ganges?
The river Ganges,
yeah,
the Ganges, which comes, but from the source. Obviously, that river is now, when you get down to...
pretty polluted downstream.
Yeah, pretty polluted. But so I said, oh, do you have any of that water? And she said, yes. And she would bring it to me. I was giving a workshop in Boulder, Colorado. So she brought the water the following day, this Gangotri water. And then I couldn't believe it. That has an energy level of 500 trillion. So this is a million times stronger, more potent than the Thomas water. So this is really getting off the charts.
Yeah. And so now we know why the yogis are very busy dipping themselves in it.
Exactly, yeah, that it really is. And according to the Hindu mythology, that water from the river Ganges was divinely blessed.
It's coming straight from Shiva.
From Shiva, yes.
Yeah.
But there is the river Bahagitri that then becomes the Ganges, and associated with the river is the goddess. Well, she's just called Ganga, so she's the goddess of the river, and she's revered there at Gangotri. So Gangotri is both the place and the name of this water, and it's known this water has special healing properties. So I thought, well, this is then the most powerful water on the planet.
Yes.
The Ganges. Until then, I was giving a workshop in Italy, and in Assisi, and I was working together there with an Italian violinist. She's an incredible violinist, Daniela, and she told me that there's a special place in Italy just south of Assisi called Colla Valenza, where there is a special healing water. People go there to be healed. So she took us there, and that is an amazing place. And there is, I'll say more about this Colla Valenza water, because that has an energy level of 2 quadrillion. So it's 4 times more potent than the Gangotri water. And there are also quite a number of miraculous healings that have taken place there at Colla Valenza. One woman I know who had breast cancer, and she lived about an hour away from Colla Valenza. So she went there once a week, and it's possible to bathe in the water, like at Lourdes. And she also drank the water as much as she could. And she was healed of breast cancer. So that's one example I know personally. But then now Colla Valenza is nothing like as well known as Lourdes in France. For a start, the application of the water there as a healing water began only in 1979. So the backstory to that is a Spanish nun who is known as Madre Speranza, Mother Hope. And from the age of 9, she had visions of Christ, and he spoke to her, and he guided her to Italy. First, she came to Rome, where she was during World War II, and of course, Rome was being bombarded, was being bombed, and people were being killed or injured. And she said, if anybody's afraid, they can come to my center. And she would heal people there, and she would feed people. Miraculously, it said she could produce food. So by the end of the war, she had built up quite a following. And then in 1951, Christ told her she should go to Collevalenza. So she arrived there in Collevalenza on the 18th of August 1951, and with the help of, now she had these followers, some of whom were quite wealthy, she was able to buy quite a lot of land there, and she was shown, to build a church there, and a big guest house for people to come. And she was told she needed to drill there for water. Now, water drilling in those days was, the equipment was not so refined as it is now. And so it was not easy, the drilling for the water there. And I'm not sure exactly when, but she was, when they were drilling down, they came down to 94 meters. Now, probably most listeners are thinking in feet, which is around, well, let's say there's a very approximate 300 feet. So it's quite a long way down. But Christ told her that was not the water. She had to keep on drilling further. So they kept on drilling, and at something like 114 meters depth, so this will be 350 feet, very approximately, they hit more water, another layer of water. But again, Christ said she had to go deeper still. And when they got down to 124 meters, so we're getting close to 400 feet depth, there they hit this very pure, pristine water. And this is the Collevalenza water. So it had to be set up so that the water could be pumped up. There are different water fountains where the water can be pumped up, and you can go, and the water is freely available. So then they have 3 times a week the possibility of bathing in the water. And that is all administered very carefully, was set up by Madre Speranza. And when you bathe in the water, you really feel this quality of lightness. And when you come out, and the first time we went there with this, I took a whole group of people there, and this sense of lightness lasted for about 5 days. So it is what one could describe as love-permeated healing water. And I believed that perhaps was the most potent water on the planet, the Collevalenza water, for many years. But then when I say 2 quadrillion, in the European way of speaking, that would be 2 billiarden. There's a different method. I'm just following the people in the United States are familiar with.
I think it's best if you just mention the American ways of describing
Yes,
the numbers.
okay. So in the American style of counting, we have millions, billions, trillions, quadrillion, quintillion, and it's very straightforward. And each level is 1,000 times more powerful than the previous one. So now through
So this water,
the color-valence water,
how much is that, you said?
that is 2 quadrillion.
2 quadrillion.
Yeah. Now here in the community, a friend has been working with structured water, and he, through him, I then received a device for structuring water. Mm-hmm. Now I can't go into all of that, but you probably know much more about it than I do. What we found is that the structuring of water increased the potency of the water 4 times. Mm-hmm. So the structured color-valence water has an energy level of 8 quadrillion. Mm-hmm. And this here in this bottle is pure color-valence water. And what you can always do if you have just a regular glass of water, you can add a drop of this, mm-hmm. and that communicates the energy to it. And
to the rest of the water.
To the rest of the water. So this is a very useful thing to know, that you can always enhance the water you're drinking. Now, what I found is that the energy also then, when you drink the water, of course, comes into you. Mm-hmm. So I found that a person's energy level is boosted amazingly by drinking this very high energy level water. Mm-hmm. However, what I also found is that after about an hour or an hour and a half or so, the energy comes down. Yeah. That is we say the biological factor that is at work and what we're used to. But if you just have a bottle like this and you can just take a drop every hour or so, you can keep your energy level boosted. So now we come to the big surprise. But before coming to that, I should just say a few words, really, what came to me through working with the color-valence water. And that is that if we look back to the time of Christ also, there is reference to his working with water. For example, healing a blind man, he asked the blind man to spit onto some soil, and then he made a kind of paste out of it. He put that on the blind man's eyes, and then told him to go and wash his eyes in a pool, the pool of Siloam. And when the blind man did that, he found he could see. So this we could call a miraculous healing. And without going into further details, one can begin to see that the drinking of water, I just give this one example. There is a water source not far from Jericho in Palestine, the Holy Land, where this is known of from the Bible, where there was a well which was created by the patriarch Jacob, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so it is of great antiquity, going back maybe like about 3,500 years from the present. And it is described in the Bible how Jesus came to Jacob's well, and there was a Samaritan woman there who was hauling up water from the well, which is how people used to get drinking water. And apparently this Jacob's Well is an extraordinary source of water. I've not been there personally, but it would be very interesting to test that. And then she offered Christ some water, and he said something to the effect, he thanked her, and he was drinking, and he said, whoever drinks of this water, his thirst will be quenched, but whoever drinks of the water that I can give will never thirst again. So he's speaking on a spiritual level. So we have to hold in mind, there is a spiritual dimension to water.
Mm-hmm.
And this plays a role at Colla Valenza, this healing sanctuary. Madre Speranza said how important it is that one drinks the water or bathes in the water in a prayerful mood, especially if you want to be healed, that that activates the water in a special healing way. So I thought I should mention that for everybody who's working with, for example, hydrogen water, which we're going to come to, that one's consciousness is very important, because one activates the water through one's inner attitude and prayerful attitude, or even reverence. I think also that the Japanese water researcher Emoto also spoke of this.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you could say one thing is water can have a very high level of energy, but if you don't infuse it with the prayer and the grace and the consciousness, it still will not be as healing as if you did.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so just to illustrate it from something that Emoto said, in speaking of water, of course, the formula in terms of the table of elements is H2O.
Mm-hmm.
So H, hydrogen, and O, oxygen, and H2 is the hydrogen molecule, which unites them with the oxygen to create water. And Emoto said that H, or H2, the hydrogen molecule, relates to love. The love which permeates all existence, the love that has created everything.
Which is the 8 hertz that I've been rambling about the whole time. So which is love, compassionate love. So
yes,
that's the hydrogen.
Yes.
Yes.
And O, the oxygen, is gratitude. So love and gratitude, Emoto said, together is very potent.
Which makes sense, because when you are receiving love, the first thing that happens is you have gratitude.
Exactly.
For the
yes.
So you could say hydrogen is the compassionate love. The oxygen attached to it is the earthly element of the experience of the love, which is the first expression will be gratitude.
Yes, that's a very good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so now we come to hydrogen water, which I was introduced to through you, Josh, just this year. I'd heard of it, but through you actually then became interested in it. And in terms of the measurement of hydrogen water, which is essentially water permeated with hydrogen, we think of carbonated water, which has been infused with carbon dioxide. Hydrogen water is water that has been infused with hydrogen.
Yeah, and just so you know, you got the Hydrofix, the Lourdes Hydrofix. He has one of those at home, and so you tested your water.
Yes, and this was really stunning. The fresh, of course, hydrogen will escape in the course of time from the water, but so when it's freshly made hydrogen water, it has an energy level of 8 quintillion, which is 1,000 times that of the structured color-valence of water, or 4,000 times the regular color-valence of water. So this is an extraordinary discovery. 8 quintillion. It is truly an expression of the love-permeated power of creation that is living in this water.
Yes.
Think of hydrogen as the primary element that permeates all the stars, the whole galaxy, and is present in water in the form of which can be released, as has now been discovered, for the creation of hydrogen water.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I can then say thank you, Josh, for having introduced me to this hydrogen water.
You're welcome.
Now, one thing I'm very interested in is to see whether it's possible to keep the potency of that hydrogen water in a dropper bottle, because that would be something then that one could really always put a drop into whatever water. Let's say if you go to a restaurant and you'll serve some mineral water, and then you can just put a drop of your hydrogen water. Well, I do this with my color-valence water. I can just put a drop in,
Mm-hmm.
and this transforms it.
But according to scientific measurements, the hydrogen leaves the water, so it shouldn't have that high energy after sitting in a bottle for a long time.
Okay.
Supposedly, it shouldn't have.
Yes. Well, perhaps we can hear some more about the hydrogen water. I know you recently gave a whole talk about the hydrogen water.
Yeah.
But I think we can approach it from the point of view that Alex Putney does when he's talking about the Lamana water. And
I just want to jump in here quickly and say, yesterday we measured the hue light machine, and he was testing the water inside the machine while it's running. And how much was?
Well, this this is the level that is the 8 quintillion.
Yeah.
The water from my machine is 2 quintillion, which is still very
high.
Very high. But
so basically the hue light is making 4 times more high energy,
right,
than the hydrofix water.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So that was a very interesting discovery. And have you thought about how it's possible to explain that?
I don't understand. No, I would say okay. So I'm fascinated with the hydrogen molecule, and I actually think large concentrations of hydrogen is the energy reading you're getting from. I think it's the hydrogen molecule that is it. And these machines are creating extreme high concentrations of it, and that's what you're reading. Yeah. And so it makes me wonder. I wonder how the energy reading would be on the surface of the sun, because it's a hydrogen star.
Yes.
I mean, it's an interesting thought. But anyway,
well, I can answer that question.
Okay. Yes.
It's 4,096 hertz. So the Earth energy is about 8 or 7.83 hertz, the so-called Schumann resonance. and that is, below our normal level of hearing. And of course, 4096 is way above that. That's several octaves up from 8.
So it's a very high vibrational frequency version of the 8 hertz hydrogen.
Yes.
So it's a extreme high version of that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the Christ consciousness, I guess.
Yes. The sun has an actual tone. The tone of the sun is 128 hertz, which is not the middle C on the piano, but the octave below what is called lower C. That is the tone of the sun. And at different workshops, I've worked with that tone, with a specially made gong, attuned to that tone of 128 hertz. And it is amazing, actually, then it connects directly with the heart, because the heart is within us, the inner sun, we could say.
Mm-hmm.
So it relates to the heart level. But if you keep going up from another octave, you have to double each time.
Mm-hmm.
So from 128 to 256,
mm-hmm.
and then to 512, and then to 1024, and then 2048, and then you come to 4096. So it's several octaves up from
hydrogen.
From hydrogen, yes.
Yeah.
Because
so it's many scales up from the base of compassionate love.
Yes. So 8 is also tone C, because if we double 8, we come to 16. That's the octave of 8.
And 8 sideways is the infinity symbol.
Exactly, yes. And then if we double from 16, we come to 32. The next octave up is 64. And then the next octave up, we come to 128.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very interesting to see the relationship of hydrogen with this primal sequence. Because of course we start with 1, we double that, we get 2, we double that, we get 4,
mm-hmm.
we double that, we get 8. So
we are having a ton of questions in here.
Okay.
And we already been talking for 1.5 hours. So,
I see.
So I think we should take the questions. And if I read it and I don't understand the question, then I'm just going to skip it. I'm sorry, because sometimes it's not written in an understandable way. Okay, so John Smith says, these healing waters from these temple sites, do they have natural high count of hydrogen? ? Which zodiac symbols are used? That is like the European Chinese versions, or maybe others new to the zodiac concept.
Very good question, and I don't know the answer to these questions. This will be a matter for further research.
I can say Patrick Flanagan did research on up in Pakistan, the Hunza waters. The Hunza water was tested, and so the Hunza people were living a long time. And they said it is because of the mountain milk. They call it the mountain milk because that water was kind of whitish, coming down from the mountains. And this is the reason they were living a long time. And so he tested this water and he found out it had huge amounts of hydrogen in the water. So there may be, I will speculate here, but if you look at water traveling up inside the mountains, defying gravity, and then comes out as springs in top of the mountains, and then it trickles down on the surface of the mountain. And so in one way, the water it defies gravity, and suddenly it does not defy gravity and becomes gravitational. And so I have an idea in my head that the levitating properties of hydrogen is what brings the water up through the mountains. And then as soon as it comes out into the atmosphere and see the sun, it takes on different qualities and becomes gravitational. And so I suspect if you could catch the water before it actually hits the atmosphere, I suspect that some of these sacred waters will have a lot of hydrogen in them. That's my suspicion.
Well, that will be something very interesting to do research into.
Yes. Okay, so Karen is saying, Song of Benedetta, the movie I watched repeatedly as a young girl. It was mesmerizing. Oh, so that was not a question. Carol says, each of the many hot springs all over the earth has its particular healing properties. Does the foundation keep track of these, the Sophia Foundation? Or is it more about just the sites that are known as sacred, question mark? I ask because we live close to several healing hot springs.
Well, this is a really interesting...
I actually think she's in Turkey. Do you know anything about Turkey?
I've been to Pakumale, where there's white stone and water running down, and that's a very special place. I've been to Turkey 3 times. I've traveled around in Turkey. But to come back to the question, so everything we've been discussing so far is really on a, let's say, a scientific, taking science as our point of departure. And what I'd like to just mention now is that there are beings connected with Mother Earth, so-called elemental beings, who live in these different elements. So the gnomes in the earth element, the undines in the water element.
What is an undine?
Undine is a water elemental being.
Does they have a form, or is it just a...
Yes.
Could you describe?
Well, fairy-like and very graceful, full of joy, and they are just active in the water. So when you're standing at the ocean and you see the waves coming in, this is the work of the undines.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in the air element, we have the sylphs, who are activating the air.
You can see those in the clouds sometimes.
Yeah. And in the warmth or the fire element, we have the salamanders.
Interesting.
And, yes. So this is a very important aspect, and this is connected with the healing springs, hot springs, that there are the undines, sometimes also referred to as nymphs, connected with these different locations. So I've been to the island of Ischia or Ischia in the Gulf of Naples, which is not quite so famous as Capri. I've been there also in the Gulf of Naples. But Ischia has a lot of healing springs, hot springs, different temperatures. So people have been going there since ancient times, Greeks and Romans and so on. And when I was there, of course, I bathed in the waters of one of the sacred sites there, which was very popular, called Narodi. And it was famous for what they call the nymphs of Narodi. And when you go there, you see there are all these there are little statues and votive memorial stones to honor the nymphs of Narodi for healing. So people went there, they were healed, and it was the work of these nymphs in the water, in that particular water. So it depends. There are different undines or elemental beings associated with the different healing
waters.
Sites, healing waters. Yeah.
Interesting. we have so much to learn. It's amazing. John Smith says, these water sources are expensive to import. Many are overseas. Have heard there are a few in the USA. If you were to get some of the healing water sent, how long of a stable period is that energy available to use? Which, with lockdown, hard to travel to the sites.
Yes, it is very difficult. And what I mentioned is that there are these very high energy waters connected with sacred sites, or Gangotri in India, or Colla Valenza in Italy, and Lourdes in France. But there the water is given freely, because it's understood that water is a free gift.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
I think there's 3 or 4 corporations who disagree with us.
Yes. Well, and it is a problem. You know.
That is a problem.
Now, of course, one can also say, well, to get the water to the people, that's also entails expense, and people have to work to do that. So for us to get the Splendor water, there's a whole factory bottling process.
But that's a different story. That's different. But water is a human right. Just like love. And
no, I will mention a woman I know who lives very near to Colla Valenza, and she get all the water she uses it for cooking, for drinking, for bathing. She gets from Colla Valenza. So she just drives over. She's not that far away, and fills up,
Is she in good health?
She's now about 85 years old, and she's got so much energy. This woman is in very good health.
Okay. I did an interview not long ago with a woman called Veda Austin.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a traffic accident and was super destroyed. And she, in New Zealand. And she couldn't really heal or anything. And then she heard about this man who had this water on his land in New Zealand, and she started drinking this water. He was curing cancers. I think he still is with this. And so he gave her some water, and she just totally healed herself completely with this water. So it's everywhere. There is good springs everywhere. And by the way, if you can't get a hold of a holy spring, then maybe try to tap into the hydrogen side of water and find out how to do that. So Elliot Spieselman says, Robert, which book by Steiner best describes this process of condensation of matter and devolution of matter and man from spirit to physical?
Well, for me, the best book would be a series of lectures that he held in 1909. And the book is published under the title, The Spiritual Hierarchies. Now, this gives tremendous background to what I was talking about. There is his fundamental book used to be called Occult Science. I think it's now called Esoteric Science, an outline where he goes into tremendous detail. But what I just mentioned, the spiritual hierarchies, is, I think, probably more easily accessible and not so detailed.
Good. Lynn is saying, does the evolution of the human from water also include the ancient civilizations that we have lost records of, such as Lemurians, Atlanteans, and perhaps many more unknown civilizations before them? Or were these very ancient civilizations not from this planet?
Well, so in terms of Lemurians, so when we look at the history of the development of the physical Earth itself, this also went through stages, obviously. So our own Earth evolution goes through 7 periods. And the first period, Polaris, the Polarian time, was like a repetition of ancient Saturn, was when we were more in a warmth organism. I mean, it's difficult to describe, but imagine we were inside an oven. and then after the Polarian came the Hyperborean, and that was more a gaseous form of the Earth. And then in the Lemurian period, so there's the Lemurian period, and then I'll come to the Lemurian people later. But the Lemurian period was the condensation. This is within Earth evolution to a watery condition. But now within that Lemurian period, there began the crystallizing out to solid Earth. And this was about 1/3 of the way through the Lemurian period. And the very first crystallization of the Earth took place in the location where there is now Jerusalem. Now, this was known to King Solomon, that this was the center of the Earth from the point of view of the surface of the Earth. And so he took there's a very, the very first stone is a rock that became solid and is called the foundation stone. It's like the foundation stone, you have a foundation stone for a building. It's the foundation stone for the whole Earth. And
that was the first materialization of physical matter.
Yes.
On Earth.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And that was, it's called the foundation stone, and was taken by Solomon when he was building the temple to be the high altar. But before, well, now that stone still exists, but it's only accessible to Muslims. It's within the dome of the rock.
Oh, that's the big thing that they're walking around.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So when they speak of the dome of the rock,
I thought it was a meteor. It's not.
That rock is the primal stone, the foundation stone of planet Earth.
Okay, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. When I first led a group there in 1993, it was possible to go in, and one could actually. And also I was there in 1997, and it was possible there to touch that stone. But now it's, since the year 2000, there have been problems. And
it turned Muslim.
But anyway, to come back to the Lemurians, so the very first people to incarnate upon the planet, they incarnated in that area, and those we call, in the biblical tradition, Adam and Eve. And so their family, Cain and Abel and so on. And so they were the original Lemurians. Now, at that time, we have to take account of continental drift. So that location is not where it is now. Mm-hmm. It was more on the equator. So there's been the continental drift of that location northward to where Jerusalem is now. But at that time of the Lemurians, it was there in the region which we would call Africa now. And there were migrations. The actual continent of Lemuria itself was between Africa and Australia, and in the region of the Indian Ocean. And and at the end of that period, it was completely destroyed. But there was an exodus, as it were, from Lemuria to Australia. That's the Aborigines. They are the oldest living people. That's where they've come from. They are descendants of the Lemurians. And also that was a descendant, that was an exodus in that direction from Lemuria. But in the other direction towards Africa, the bush men, the bush people of Africa, they are also descendants from Lemuria. You have the same phenomena with Atlantis, which was in the region of the Atlantic Ocean. Before Atlantis went down in this great flood that is described in the Bible, the great flood, there were migrations to North America. The Native American Indians are descendants from the Atlanteans, just as the Aborigines of Australia are descendants from the Lemurians and the Bushmen as well.
Okay. So we have 31 more questions.
Oh.
So let's try to see if we can get through it. These sacred sites or power spots must also be magnetic. That helps with the healing waters. Yes?
Yes, but I haven't really tested that myself. But this is something that Alex Pernay.
I can say I have seen research and science on magnetic lines going through the earth, and it has a huge impact on water, and water becomes healing waters from it. There's some scientists out there talking about these things. So yes. Mm-hmm. And also just putting magnets near your water is structuring the water. So yes. Carol is saying the ones I refer to are said to heal particular physical disorders. There is one in French Lick, Indiana. Another is a hot springs in Arkansas, for example. It's for immersion in the water, but can also include drinking. In Turkey, there are many sites existing from antiquity. So there was not a question, but she just referred to this. Steve Rice, I have the ability to dowse for water. Can you explain how that works and why?
This is my understanding that it is so that always connected with water, there are undines, and that the dowsing is whatever instrument you're using for dowsing is responding to those beings, which are saying, here we are, we're right here. And so that's how most dowsers are not really conscious of that, but that's how it's possible. I've also been asked to dowse for water and was able to find it. But what's very difficult is to know the depth at which the water is and the rate of flow of the water, because you could spend a lot of money drilling down a long way and it's not very much water coming.
Okay. Steve, he says there is good info, maybe Robert, on the forum. Yes, forgot in, please post. So I don't know what that is. Is it known any people who are working with the one manifestation creation of the high frequency, no matter where on the planet? So don't understand that. Don't understand that. Okay. Carol says, is the Agamemnon thermal springs in Izmir a sacred spring? It has functioned at least since the Hellenistic period.
Well, I haven't personally been there. I can't answer the question, but I'm sure what Carol is referring to would imply that there have been healings taking place there down through the ages. So I think that will be the answer.
Okay. So let me see. The high testing of water, has it been documented the effect on consciousness living through people or other living beings? Share in what ways it has manifested on this planet via through people. Example of living Shiva was just stated. So I don't, Cheryl, you need to...
I think the what you mentioned with Patrick Flanagan's research with those people who've been living from that water and for attaining a very high age.
Very high age, but not necessarily a high level of consciousness.
Right. Right.
So it is. I feel this thing with nothing comes for free, in the sense of you have to do your own inner work.
Yes.
It's not like water can just take care of everything for you. How many million bows was dewdrops? Somebody's asking.
23 million. So the same as lured water. 23 million.
For all of Shell, I can't understand most of what you're writing. Through the breath of water. Okay, John says, so for us that are not next to a healing water site, structured water with Shungite may be our best substitute for healing waters. Well, I want to point out that we tested my water yesterday. So I have the Splendor water from Lamana, and I actually vortex it and then let it sit with Shungite, Anchi crystals, paramagnetic sand, and lots of other stuff, like good crystals, and it's just sitting there. And that water alone, without the hydrogen machine, was already testing at 2
quadrillion.
So which is, it went from Splendor water with 5 million to 2 quadrillion, just from what I'm doing with the spinning and then all the Shungite and all these things. So even if you cannot afford a hydrogen machine, you can afford Shungite and Anchi crystals, paramagnetic sand, laminar crystals, which is used for the capstone of the top of the pyramid and stuff like that in Egypt. So go on dancingwithwater.com website. They have a lot of stuff in there, and these things took that water up to this level of energy. So, and it's cheap. You can do that cheaply. Cheryl says, have you ever used your life meter to check energy levels of primary water, deep well water found above the Earth's magma, as found by dowsing by Bill Cox?
No, I haven't, but I'm sure that will be very interesting. That this primal water, I think, is very important as the ultimate source, actually, for all the water on the planet.
It might be extremely potent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's closer to the center of the Earth, which is the Okay, John says the hydrogen devices are still expensive. Does Robert have an alternative for some of us? Is there local sources in the USA to get these healing waters sent to our homes? And so, as I mentioned, the Shungite, do all these things, dancing with water, that will be a cheap way to get a high energy.
And now if the Splendor water is becoming commercially available in the United States, so that will be a good starting point, and to do exactly what you've been doing with the Shungite and the Anchi, and that definitely will elevate the frequency of the water.
And don't forget your own consciousness. You just send in your prayers. Emoto, he has proven this again and again, which is for free. John again says, so if the magnetic poles switch Sunday, would that affect the sacred sites of healing waters? Thus the continents shifts change the sacred sites, their healing abilities over the years, maybe according to ancient texts.
I think it's very possible, and we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we will know. You're gonna find out. And again, okay, so I'm gonna try to read this because I'm not sure. So from Cheryl, can Mother Earth override one source of sacred water and make all waters on Earth equal high frequency? eventually through us who are doing the work, co-create for all life. Is this better stated? You just mentioned intent. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. So I understand that question. Did you understand it?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, again, it's very possible. I think that, as you mentioned, Emoto, that praying and meditating on water does raise its energy.
Yeah.
And so this will be possible. Obviously, though, what we're talking about is that it's helpful to have a certain foundational source of water that is pure and high energy, not ultra high energy, but then you have a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be curious to see you testing. There's a brand out there in the United States called What Are, WATT, and then AHH. This water. So I'm in contact with MJ Pengman from Dancing with Water, and she's raving about it. She's having all kinds of healing experiences on herself and others. And so I never tried it, but when I hear her praising it, I pay attention because she's really good with water. And I would be so curious to see what you would test with that water, because it's special water. And so, I'm just mentioning because this is something, if I was living in the States and I couldn't afford a hydrogen machine, I would play around with Shungite and all these things, and I would also try to get some of this water shipped to my door, because it's not super expensive, and you can remember this thing with one drop in the water, and it starts sharing the energy properties with the rest of the water. So it would be affordable for you to tap into high energy water. I'm suspecting that this water would be very high on the Bowie scale as well. That's my suspicion. So what is the list of that water? So if you want to know about Shungite and all these things that I'm doing to my water, you as a member, you have access to the water workshop. You go in Dharma portal in the academy. You can watch all these videos. It's part of your membership, so you have access to all this, and it is super simple. It's cheap to do, and we just got verified now that this actually is very high on the Bowie scale. So it works. This stuff works. And let me put it this way: I didn't even need Robert to come and confirm this to me. My body tells me. I can already feel when the energy is high in the water. So, but it's very nice to get these scientific verifications on top. So I think it's time to hear our water prayer. You had a water prayer?
So this is in honor of water. And as we know, the moon orbiting around the Earth has a great impact on water. We think of the tides. We can understand this, that the moon actually indicates to us the extent of the level or expansion of the Earth's etheric or life body. It extends to the moon. And so, of course, the moon's orbit around the Earth has this very powerful impact. And it's interesting that our interview now has been exactly at the time of the full moon.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was full moon here in Ecuador time at 10 minutes before 10 this morning. But of course, the whole period now is the full moon
So
period.
we got a full blast of full moon right now.
Exactly. And 1 hour later at 10 minutes to 11, the sun was in opposition to the planet Uranus. So that is also something very powerful. It's a very powerful moment in time that we are presenting this. And so this is in honor of all the water of the earth. And so we're going to go back to a time in ancient Lemuria when the earth and the moon were actually united. The moon separated out from the earth and has left behind that whole region of the Pacific Ocean. Now, some people speak about the lost continent of Mu. That is the moon that was there.
Oh, wow.
It's different from Lemuria, which was in the region where it's the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
So the moon separated out from the earth so that the moon forces surrounded the earth as a sheath, and everything vibrated in sound. The bodies of human beings became more and more dense, adapting to the element of water, living in the watery mist. For the earth was surrounded by clouds of watery vapors. The air was filled with water, and the sun's rays could only be discerned vaguely through the thick mist. Human beings lived in this mist outside the physical body, although connected with it. They mainly developed their feelings during this period. This is all in the Lemurian period, and were thus able to influence the element of water. This is very important. So we are connected on a feeling level with water, and the undines are beings of joy. You can just feel that if you go stand next to a flowing river. I know you have one at the bottom of your garden. You can feel this quality of joy. So rivers, lakes, and seas comprise a vast collection of elemental beings that interpenetrate and actually are the water. These elemental beings that exist in water are called undines. The birth of innumerable undines is entailed when the rain pours down onto the earth, and when lightning flashes from the thunder clouds and the rain pours down, also light streams down to the earth. In ancient times, humanity experienced this as the drinking of the Soma drink.
Wow.
King of the oceans, thou who hast the keys of heaven, we honor the elemental beings of water, the undines, and we unite ourselves with the element of water in gratitude for the activity of the undines under the guidance of Varuna. Varuna is the Hindu name for the king of all the elemental beings of water. The undines speak. They speak to us. Think in the spirit.
Think in the spirit.
Think in the spirit.
Okay.
So I should just mention, I work with cosmic dance, and in this past summer, in the last week of July, I gave a workshop in Switzerland in a place called Dornach, which is close to Basel in Switzerland. And I gave a one-day workshop, Cosmic Dances of the Elements, moving to the elements of fire, air, water, and earth with corresponding music. And that is a very profound experience and way of connecting with the elements. In fact, one time I was giving that workshop in Seattle, and a Native American Indian woman came, and she said that through their dances, they also connect with elements, and she's able to see the elemental beings. And she said this was for her a remarkable experience, that through our dances of the four elements, she said the elemental beings came in and she could see them. They were present with us as we were moving. So,
and you are also sacks of water moving around. So these nymph beings are within you as well.
Exactly.
When you're moving.
Yes. Right. So, yes, so we have to.
So I was asked if I can put the water prayer on the forum, and I don't know if you're willing to share that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So I'll try
Yeah.
to do that. So we've been going at it for 2 hours and 10 minutes now. I think we'll take a break. And so I will, how many would like to do, I want to take a 1 hour break. And then I can come back alone. I will let you go, and we can do some breath work and meditation if you guys are interested. But that will be in a 1 hour's time. Are you guys up for that? Yes or no? If enough people are up for it, we can do it. But it's gonna be in 1 hour. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. Lynn cannot do it. If we are 6 people, I'll go. I'll do it. Okay, next week. Next week. We'll do it next week. There's only 5 people. So let's do some breath work. We will do a lot of it next week. Okay? So see you next week. And Robert, thank you so much for coming again and sharing this watery talk.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you for inviting me, and warm greetings to everyone who's been listening. And may something of what has been said be inspiring and perhaps even life-changing. So thank you very much, Josh, and keep up the good work, the water work, and everything you're doing.
I will. Okay, until next time.
Okay.
Ciao. Yeah, so we're gonna post on the forum. Thank you. Love you all. Ciao.